Happy Thursday. Welcome to another Cook with Kris. It has been a couple weeks with the Thanksgiving holiday, but I am so excited to be back here in the kitchen with you guys, sharing with you one of my family's favorite, really easy, delicious recipes that's really versatile and can be used in a ton of different ways. And I'm actually going to share with you two different ways to make it, a meat version and then a really easy swap to make it totally plant-based as well, and that is, if you already saw the title, my easy Bolognese sauce. So to get started, I'm gonna go ahead and share with you the ingredients that I'm gonna use, and then I'm gonna start chopping and we're gonna dig right in, and we're gonna finish this in about 30 minutes. Both varieties are done in about 30 minutes. So really quick and easy, a great weeknight recipe, and you guys know that's what I'm all about. I'm culinary trained, but I am a real mama. And so the recipes that I make are all very family friendly and very weeknight friendly. So here is what we need. So the first couple of ingredients that we need are, we need some onion, we need some celery, and we need some carrots. So any of you remember when I talked about mirepoix? This is the Italian version of mirepoix. It's called sofrito. So I ran out of onion and celery at my house, so I'm gonna go ahead and chop these along with you guys today, but you want an equal amount of carrot, celery, and onion chopped finely to start out. I also like to add a couple non-traditional items to Bolognese. So for those of you who don't know, Bolognese is an Italian meat sauce, but it's heavier on the meat and less heavy on the tomatoes. So I'm actually gonna be using canned tomatoes. Some people use tomato paste, some people use a little bit of tomato sauce, some people use crushed tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes. There are like a million different ways to make Bolognese, but the basics are, you start with your sofrito, so your carrot, celery, and onion. You add some garlic. I'll show you the other spices in a minute. I also like to add in some mushrooms that I've already pre-prepped, and I love to add in some shredded zucchini. Just another way to add in some extra veggies for myself, for the kids. Also add in some extra flavor. Those are definitely not traditional, but they're really delicious, and they just kind of blend right into the sauce. So I'm gonna start with the carrot, celery, onion, garlic. I'm also gonna saute in some mushrooms and some zucchini, and they really do just melt into the sauce. You'll want some fresh parsley. I love finishing it with fresh basil as well if you've got it. It's not really in season right now, but parsley is easy to find at Trader Joe's. Some Italian seasoning. Whoops, a pinch of nutmeg or allspice is great in sauce as well. I already shared with you the canned tomatoes, sea salt, and you can either choose to use ground beef. This is grass-fed ground beef, or if you want to make it a plant-based option, you can also use pre-cooked green lentils. These are just lentils I cooked in the Instant Pot for about 9 minutes, and you can use both of these the same exact way and make a really delicious Bolognese sauce. Now, traditional Bolognese is oftentimes, you oftentimes use a splash of wine. I don't think we've got any wine here today, so we're just going with it. You can use a splash of wine if you would like as well. The alcohol cooks off, so it's totally safe for kids. And you oftentimes also finish it with a bit of milk. We don't use a lot of milk in our house, so I'm actually gonna finish it with a little bit of, here we go, a little bit of heavy cream, which is also really delicious. Obviously, if you want the plant-based version to be totally plant-based, you can leave the cream out or use a little bit of coconut cream as well, but that's what I'm gonna use today. So let's go ahead and start making it. All right, so I've got my little plate over here so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm actually gonna make both versions at once, and I'll show you how I do that. This is great if you have plant-based family members and meat-eating family members. It's very easy to make at once. And the other one I'm gonna make over at the stove back there, but it's hard to hear me when I head back over to the stove. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my pan. I'm just using a heavy-bottomed, very very deep, that's the word I'm looking for, very deep saute pan or saucier. You could also use a Dutch oven for this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put it on, and I'm gonna turn it up to about medium-high. Once that starts getting pretty hot, I'm gonna go ahead and add in just a splash of olive oil, maybe about a tablespoon. I'll give it a couple seconds to get nice and hot, and while I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and chop up my onion. So like I said, you want your carrot, celery, and onion to be about the same size. As with anything, when you are cooking, your whole goal is that you are just basically cooking everything to about the same size, so it's just nice and easy to cook all at the same rate. If you have, giant pieces of potato that you're trying to roast, and some of your potato is way bigger than the other, you're gonna end up with some pieces of potato that are really hard and some pieces of potato that are really soft. Same thing goes with onions, carrots, celery. You want to just try and cut them to about the same size. You want them pretty finely chopped for sofrito. I can see this getting hot, so I'm gonna put my olive oil in. Woo! And there the top goes. This is real life live. I throw things around in the kitchen. We did our cooking class with our little homeschool. We have one other family that we do homeschool with once a week, and the kids did macaroni and cheese this morning. And it was fun, but my goodness, it was messy. We did 2 types. We did a regular mac and cheese, and then we also did a cashew cream sauce. And you know what? I was actually thinking about it when I was making this with the kiddos today. I was thinking, I wonder if you guys would be interested in me doing mac and cheese 2 ways. Ooh, you guys, I'm cutting this onion way too slow, and I'm getting teary. I can't get teary. I teach you guys, the sharper the knife, the less you cry, right? All right, we got my onion chopped up. I'm gonna go ahead and just put that in there because the pan is ready. And I'm gonna put my carrots on in there. Typically, I would like to put the carrot, celery, onion all at the same time, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna get those going. And I'm just gonna grab a spatula to stir that around. You wanna make sure whenever you're sauteing anything, you make sure that when you put it in the pan, you mix it around so the oil coats it. The oil is what is the cooking medium here. Obviously, the heat is coming up from the pan, it's heating up the oil, and the oil in part with the heat is what is cooking your food. So when you're using a dry heat cooking method like sauteing, like we're using now, then you wanna make sure it's nice and coated in that oil. So those are gonna go ahead and cook. I'm gonna get the celery done. So yeah, let me know, you guys, if you want me to do like a mac and cheese 2 ways. I can do a regular old mac and cheese, and I can do the plant-based mac with the cashew cream that my kids love. It's a little loud with the Vitamix, but I'm happy to share with you guys how I do that because my kids love it, and it doesn't taste exactly like macaroni and cheese. We use it like on its own as just a base for pasta or spaghetti squash as well. And I didn't mention that with this Bolognese sauce, whoa, you guys, I do not have the cutting board secured like I normally do, and that's why I'm struggling. So let this be a lesson. If you're at your mom's house and she hasn't secured the cutting board, remind her that you need to secure the cutting board with a wet paper towel, or else we might have a really interesting cooking class if I cut my finger. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put that celery on in there. And again, we're gonna coat that in oil. So this is not a must, but I really like seasoning my vegetables when I put them in the pan. It's really important to season your food as you go and not try and just season your food at the end. Your food needs time to season. The salt needs to penetrate the pores of the food that you are cooking. And so if you try and put your seasoning in at the end, it's not going to taste very good. It's going to feel kind of flat. So foods that have more depth of flavors are the ones that the individual components are cooked and seasoned on their own. And remember, when you season, to season from above. So we're just going to go ahead and get that cooking over here. And I will share with you how I'm going to take it from a meat version to a plant-based version and do it. Yeah, it's going to take 2 pans, but it's basically one preparation, 2 different pans. So what I was saying earlier as well is that this is a great versatile recipe because you can serve Bolognese on top of basically whatever in the world you want. I just put the cover on. This is just going to help to cook it a bit faster. You can serve it on whatever you want. You can serve it on pasta if you want to serve it on pasta. That's very traditional. A tagliatelle, which is an egg-based pasta. It's my absolute pasta to make. If I make pasta, actually I promised my sister I'd make it for her on her birthday this year. Homemade pasta is like a whole course. That is probably not something we can do during a Cook with Kris, at least not in the time that Instagram allows us to cook together on a Thursday, but it's one of my favorites. I learned how to make pasta in Italy, and it was one of those things that like sparked my love of cooking and inspired me to go to culinary school after I went to college for nutrition. And really, I mean, if I had never learned how to make pasta, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So you can put it on pasta, you can put it on zucchini noodles, you could put it over mashed potatoes. That's also something that some people do. I don't eat white potatoes because I'm allergic, or very rarely. But Bolognese is really delicious on basically anything that you would enjoy a meat sauce on top of. And same thing if you want to use if you want to make the plant-based option, whatever you would put some sort of like a meat sauce on. And like I said, Bolognese, I'm shredding the zucchini, by the way. The Bolognese is it's a very thick and kind of meat and veggie heavy sauce versus like a tomato heavy sauce. So if you have any family members that might be a little bit more sensitive to tomatoes, who might not like as many tomatoes, then this is a great sauce for them. I'm just gonna stir this over here. So how are we gonna turn this into a plant-based recipe super easily? Well, we are sauteing all of these veggies together. Typically I use about a half of an onion, 1 stalk of celery, and 1 carrot for this recipe. You saw that I used 2. Obviously I had the carrots already prepped, but I used a whole onion, 2 pieces of celery, and 2 carrots chopped. And so I'm sauteing all of that together in here. I shredded up 1 large zucchini, and I have, this is like almost a full container, so like almost 16 ounces, so probably 12 to 14 ounces of mushrooms all chopped up. So I'm just using extra veggies. I'm gonna go ahead, once this is a little bit more cooked, I'm gonna go ahead and add those in, saute those up. Mushrooms shrink down, so feel free to use a ton of mushrooms if you like mushrooms. And I'm using 2 gigantic cloves of garlic because we love garlic in my house. Great for the immune system. I'm actually going to go ahead and mince that garlic now. I've talked about this before, but a fun little immune boosting nutrition hack. If you mince your garlic and you leave it out for about 10 to 20 minutes, it releases the allicin, which is the immune fighting compound of the garlic. So it's a reason to mince your garlic a little bit ahead of time when you start cooking. Though it does start to dissipate, so when you get the minced garlic from the store, it's not going to have as high a nutritional, I don't even know, as high a nutritional value anymore in terms of immunity. So just a fun little fact here. So we're doing double the vegetables, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up once they're all sauteed in the same pan. Okay, we don't need to saute in 2 different pans because that is way too much, and that is not something I like to do outside of working in a kitchen, which I don't do anymore. So we are gonna go ahead and saute it all in 1 pan, and then I'm gonna transfer these sauteed veggies to half and half to this pan and that pan, and then we're gonna go ahead and cook our meat, either our ground beef or your lentils. You could also use a plant-based meat substitute if you're into that. This is looking good, you guys. It's pretty sauteed in there. We're doing the fun little like flip thing where I flip the vegetables and then knock over my Italian seasoning. I don't even know why it's here. I already have it measured out. All right. Where is my... All right, we look like we're nice and translucent, and that's what we're looking for with the vegetables. So once the celery and the onions are see-through, then you know they're mostly cooked. It's gonna continue to cook after as well. But you want them mostly cooked. You can go ahead and add in the rest of your veggies if you're using them. You wanna stay a little bit more traditional, and like I said, there is no like true traditional Bolognese because like every family has their own Bolognese recipe, and this is just kind of the way that I do it. So I'm adding in the mushrooms and the zucchini, which again, not traditional, but I like the extra veggies. I'm gonna go ahead and add those in. And the reason I like shredding we're almost done with this. The reason I like adding shredded vegetables to sauces is because, first of all, they cook up really fast. And you could also do that with the carrots if you wanted to. You can, by the way, you could also, when you're doing mirepoix or you're doing sofrito, you are also very welcome to, when you're doing a soup, a stew, a sauce, chop up the carrot, celery, and onion in a food processor to save yourself the knife time. I like shredding vegetables, which you can shred with just a grater like I did, or you can use the shredding blade on your food processor because they just melt into the sauce and they add some extra nutrition. They add a bit more bulk to the sauce. It makes it a little bit more filling with some extra fiber, and it's just delicious. I like zucchini. But again, not traditional, so not necessary. I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. You guys, do not be afraid of salt. Most of the salt that we're afraid of comes from, eating a lot of processed foods like soups and frozen meals and things like that, not from salting your food. Adding salt as you go will help to bring out the flavor of your food, and you're going to use less salt overall instead of dumping a bunch of salt in at the end. Like I said, if you're just hopping on, I was talking about how it's important to season your food as you go. It's going to impart flavor and bring out the flavors of each individual ingredient instead of just trying to add it in at the end and your dish feeling a little bit flat. It's one of those really great tips that's just going to help you to become a better cook in the kitchen. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that, I put the cover on again. Again, you don't need to put the cover on, but we're trying to keep it a little bit more brief here today, so you're not here with me for 2 hours. It's not a real cooking class, though I would love to have all of you guys in a real in-person cooking class. I don't know the next time that is going to happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick off the last little bit of parsley. This is not very pretty parsley because this was left over from Thanksgiving, but I love using fresh herbs whenever I can. Like I said, you can add in fresh basil, but I like adding that in at the end. You could add in some fresh thyme if you had some fresh thyme. When it comes to fresh herbs, just think of how a dish smells when you're wondering if it would go really well in the dish. Cilantro is not usually the choice for Italian food. By the way, this is pre-washed. I would not just do this if it was not pre-washed. Make sure that you rinse off your herbs because they are oftentimes very sandy, which is not yummy. We talk about texture when it comes to cooking, but that's not the kind of texture you're looking for. So if I haven't taught you guys yet how to chop herbs, if you're a part of my meal prep course, you'll know I teach all about different knife skills, but chopping herbs is super easy. So I'm gonna make sure that first of all, I don't have anything on my knife. We're gonna clean off my knife because I wanna make sure that I'm not sticking to the herbs. We're just gonna bunch them all up, okay? Make sure you use your claw. Just gonna go ahead and chop in one direction. Simple chop, okay? Chop in one direction. Scoop it all together. Make sure your pan's not in the way. And just chop in the other direction. And you're literally gonna go back and forth and do that. Of course, make sure you secure your cutting board. I am actually in the process of looking for a new cutting board. My cutting board was getting a bit icky, so I'm just using my mom's cutting board right now, and that's why it's not secured. If you guys have a really great, heavy, and really supportive cutting board that you're a fan of, I'm willing to pay the big bucks. A good cutting board is worth its weight in gold. So if you guys have a really great cutting board that you love, maybe you got as a present, maybe you're a foodie too, and you love your cutting board. I've been looking at a few different ones, but I love personal recommendations. The last one I had was just like a big old bamboo one. All right, so now that that is chopped up, we're done with our chopping. Our veggies are looking pretty good. They're getting soft. I'm gonna let them cook down for another minute or two here. And I'm gonna go ahead and see if there's any. Dana said freezer friendly. Yeah, this is very freezer friendly. Oh my gosh. So just split it up into either Ziploc bags so let it cool entirely after you cook it. Split it up into either Ziploc bags or stasher bags, which I love. They freeze really well. They are silicone Ziploc bags, and you can even put liquids in them. It's a very hearty sauce, like I mentioned. It's not quite a liquid. So I would split it up, put it in, once it's nice and cool, in a Ziploc bag, squish any of the air out of it and lay it flat, freeze it flat like that. You can actually freeze sauces or soups like that in your freezer. Best way to do it. And to defrost it, you can just put it in your fridge the day before and it'll defrost and you can use it again. So it's super, super freezer friendly. This is a great freezer friendly recipe, especially because it does make quite a bit. And as you'll see, I'm making 2 versions today. All right, we're looking pretty good. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I am gonna go turn my pan on the actual stove back there, and we're gonna cook the veggie option over here on the stove back here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take half of this, okay? And I'm gonna put it over there. Except I realized that I forgot to put in the garlic. So we're gonna go ahead and split the garlic up and thankfully that's on, so it will continue to cook. So I'm gonna put half of my minced garlic in here and half of my minced garlic in there. Normally I would do it all together, but human. Okay, and no perfection here. We are not about perfection in any area in the healthy, balanced mama world when it comes to eating or cooking. That's why I don't do a lot of baking. I don't do well with perfection. Not in the kitchen, at least. All right, so we're just gonna go ahead and get that garlic all up in there. Remember that we are at a medium heat right now. You do not want your garlic to brown in the bottom. When garlic browns, it turns bitter. That's the last thing we want right now. Okay, we're doing great over here. So what I would do right now, if I had some, other than turn this down, is I would add a splash of wine, but I really don't see any. So instead, we're gonna use a splash of beef broth. So what does this do? It deglazes the pan. What in the world does that mean? So if you don't drink alcohol, you don't have wine around, or you can always deglaze the pan with broth. It's not going to impart the same flavor as wine does, but I just put a splash in. So deglazing the pan is literally when the pan is nice and hot, you add in a liquid and you let the liquid evaporate. You're not adding more liquid to the pan. You are scraping the bottom of the pan to get any of that delicious flavor from the vegetables caramelizing and sauteing in the pan into the sauce that you are about to create. All right, we got that baby going over there. We're gonna go ahead and put the top on. It's nice and low. That is gonna be done quicker than this version. So what are we gonna do now? We're gonna go ahead and add in our meat or our lentils. So I've just got grass-fed ground beef. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in. I'll spare you the icky plate. So if I were being super fancy, then I might take the vegetables out, saute the beef, strain the beef, and then go ahead and put it back in. But we're mamas, most of us, and we want quick and easy weeknight recipes. So we're not doing extra steps. No extra steps around here. Same thing with the lentils over on the other side. Literally doing the same thing, okay? So we've got our veggies that we cooked all together, beef over here, lentils over there. I made a lot of lentils, so I'm using about 2 cups of lentils. Both of these recipes serve about 4. So now I'm gonna switch spoons. All we're doing is stirring it up with the beef. You saw me season it over there. I'm gonna do the same thing with the lentils. Just gonna season them up really well. I get salt everywhere. I know. And once the beef starts to cook, you're just gonna break it up. Like I said, you can go ahead, if you prefer, you can go ahead and you can take the veggies out, add the beef in, cook the beef, strain it, add it back, or you can just keep it simple. I'm all about keeping it simple. Let's do one less step to make our lives easier, because there's enough craziness going on in the world. We don't need to complicate cooking. I'm all about uncomplicated eating and uncomplicated cooking. So we're just breaking this meat up. Some people use like a potato masher for this. Again, we're not complicating it. We're just using our wooden spatula. Okay, so I mentioned the mac and cheese 2 ways as being something that I might want to bring into the new year. So next week I'm going to share with you guys one of my favorite soups, one of my favorite winter soups. And then the week after that, we are going to go ahead and do some Italian seasoning, half and half. This is about a teaspoon in each. I'm gonna stir because we wanna make sure that the flavors all meld. We're gonna do, in 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna do some holiday appetizers, a little bit of nutmeg. Just for fun, so you guys can have some fun, easy appetizers to make, whether it's just you and your husband or some family around for, you know, Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I'm gonna share a couple of appetizers. So next week we're gonna do a soup. The week after we're gonna do some apps, because I had a couple of requests for can you share some easy apps. So we're gonna do some easy apps, and I'll have you guys vote on those as well. We'll do that next week, because next week I've got the soup that I know I want to share with you guys, and that's actually another one that's really easy to make meaty or planty, just totally up to you. I'm gonna cover this and let it cook for another couple of minutes. And then in the new year, I have something really fun coming. So I'll definitely be taking votes for recipes. I mentioned maybe let's do macaroni and cheese 2 ways, and we'll do that. But I've got some fun stuff that I want to share and teach you guys. But I'm always welcome and always open to suggestions. If you guys have specifics that you want to learn about, I've got a lot that I want to teach you. I am just stirring the lentils over here just to make sure that that seasoning is all nice and mixed in there. I'm gonna let that cook for a couple minutes, and then we're gonna go ahead and add the tomatoes as soon as the beef is cooked. And again, you don't need to keep covering this and uncovering this. Totally can. If you want to leave it on there at a lower heat, you can absolutely cover it and just let it cook that way. That'll start to steam it. So if you want something crispy, don't cover it. But if you're fine with it steaming a little bit, you can definitely cover it. You don't have to. I'm doing that to speed up the cooking process a little bit. So I'm very excited about some of the things that I plan on teaching you guys in the near future. So definitely let me know if you have suggestions. We'll vote on appetizers. I'll probably do 2 or 3 fun and easy appetizers. My sister's going to be home for that one, so she's not mad at all that I'm going to be making some apps. And there was something else that I had planned on telling you guys, cooking related, and I can't remember. So if any of you think of what I was going to tell you, just let me know. Oh my gosh. So cleaning while I cook or cleaning while I go so that it's less work for me afterwards. It's like the best chef tip I can give you. All right. We're almost there. I'm going to add in this sauce. Or sorry, the chopped tomatoes, which is what I'm going to use for this. We just want to make sure the beef is no longer pink. And the lentils, I'm over there, they're at medium low. They're literally we're just making sure that that Italian seasoning and the little bit of nutmeg just kind of meld into the lentils. Obviously, I just used a little bit of beef broth in there, so it's not going to be entirely plant-based. You can use veggie broth if you want to. If the lentils do start sticking to the pan, they're looking pretty good now, but if your lentils start sticking, then just deglaze it again. If it's on high enough heat, the water will just evaporate. And I should mention, now that I'm going to go ahead and add in the tomatoes, you can add in as many or as little tomatoes as you want. So I'm going to do about half of a can, and like I said, I'm using diced because that's what I've got, and we're trying not to go to the grocery store so much, but crushed is a great option as well. If you wanted to add a whole can's worth, totally welcome to. This is your recipe. This is your dinner. So I always want to encourage you to uncomplicate things. They don't need to be complicated. If you can combine a couple steps, combine a couple steps. If you make a recipe and you're like, I think I can do those things together and it would be less stress, please do it. And modify as fits for you and your family. If you guys like more tomatoes, add more tomatoes. If you hate mushrooms and you saw me put mushrooms in and you're like, she ruined it, then just don't put mushrooms in. Let that simmer. The beauty of cooking is that there is so much flexibility, just like with eating, right? So much flexibility. So do what feels good to you. The more you cook, the more comfortable you're gonna be in the kitchen, the more confident you're gonna be in the kitchen. And that's what I hope to bring you guys when I share these with you. It's just more confidence in the kitchen, as well as more recipes, lots of tips. But the more confident you are, the more you're gonna be able to experiment and find recipes and cooking styles that your family loves. All right, I gotta go stir my lentils. Now, if you want a really cheater way to make bolognese, I actually have that recipe on my website. I call it cheater bolognese. Use a pasta sauce instead of the tomatoes and the veggies, okay? You can add onion if you want, but use a pasta sauce. This one's like so-so. That's really chunky. Like use a chunky, I know that's a gross word, but like use a chunky pasta sauce. So cook up your beef with the Italian seasoning, with some nutmeg. We're gonna add in our parsley and then just use a pasta sauce that's a little bit chunkier. Voila. Bolognese, but don't forget the garlic, unless you hate garlic, but I recommend garlic. I'm gonna add a little bit of broth to that pan just because I don't think I divided the tomatoes very well. Remember, don't be afraid to deglaze. And we're almost done, you guys. This is it. We are just gonna go ahead and let that parsley, which I'm just mixing up in both of these pans, let the parsley cook a little bit. You can let the parsley cook longer if you don't like that fresh parsley flavor. Again, you could also add basil instead. Now is the time where I want you to taste your bolognese. See if it needs anything else. See if it maybe needs a little bit more parsley. See if it needs a little bit more salt. You've been salting as you go, so chances are it doesn't need a boatload of salt. But we're gonna taste it. So good. I know I always say that with my recipes, but I'm not a huge tomato fan. I don't love pasta sauces that are like really, really tomato heavy. Any tomato lovers, I'm sorry. I like them fresh from the garden. I don't like a lot of tomato-based recipes, so this is like the perfect amount of veggies and garlic and tomatoes. Then same thing over there with the lentils as well. The lentils add a nice like meatiness. Without any meat. So here are my lentils over here. You can see those. Okay. So, whoops, I haven't cooked out all of the broth, so they are sticking together just a little bit. But you can see that there's still, oh you guys, I forgot a bay leaf. That's fine. I like to add a bay leaf while it's simmering at the end. I like to simmer it for like 10 to 15 minutes. There are still pieces, is what I'm trying to say. There are still pieces of lentils in there. It is kind of melding together a little bit, but there are still nice like pieces of lentils, so it has that meatiness to it. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and try this. Add a little bit of salt, but it really doesn't need much. It really doesn't taste very different. It's just kind of amazing. So I'm gonna leave this one as is. If I had coconut milk, you could add a little bit of coconut milk. Like I said, most traditional bolognese have like a little splash of milk at the end. really heavy pan. It is deceivingly heavy. So you can add a little bit of milk at the end, or you can add a tiny little splash of cream. I love finishing it off with some fresh grated Parmesan, using my microplane that is still broken because my other one was back ordered and I have yet to see it. Amazon, if you would like to send me my new microplane, that would be great. All right. I could just go to a store, but I'm trying not to go to stores. So I gotta rely on Amazon. Just goes to show you, I guess, you don't need fancy tools to, I mean, you need a good knife, but other than a good knife, you don't need fancy tools to be a good cook. So I just added a little splash of cream in here. 100% unnecessary. You don't need it if you don't want it, but I love the little bit of creaminess it adds. I just cook out a little bit of the liquid, and then I will show you how delicious both of these options are. So, so good. Again, modify it as you like. Add in veggies. Add in tomatoes. Do cream. Don't do cream. This is your base recipe. I'm going to post it in my stories after I get off with you, which will be in just a minute because this is our dinner, so I don't really have anything else to show you other than what I'm going to. And let me know if you have any questions. Okay. This is my meat-based Bolognese. There's like barely any tomatoes in there, but there's lots of tomatoes in the pan. And then I've got my little lentil-based Bolognese here. So let me just pick up the pan. I will risk my arms. Okay. We've got our tomato Bolognese with all of our veggies and our tomatoes and a teeny tiny bit of cream. And getting my arm workout today. We've got our delicious lentil Bolognese made the exact same way, just with lentils and without the cream. All right, you guys, that is our Cook with Kris for the day today. I hope you guys loved this. I hope you'll go home and try this, or maybe you're probably at home now, but I hope that you will try this recipe out. Let me know if you try it. Please tag me in it in your stories, and be sure to stick around and watch in my stories. Next week, I'll do a vote for which appetizers you guys want. I used to be a caterer, so I have like basically every appetizer recipe under the sun you can think of. So if there's something specific that you want, or you want to vote on one of the appetizer recipes, we'll probably do, like I said, probably 2 or 3, depending on which ones you guys pick. We'll do that in a couple weeks. Next week, I'll be back with a soup. It was so great having you guys with me today. And if you're watching later, it was so great for you to watch this later. I love sharing uncomplicated cooking with you guys. All right, I hope you guys all have a beautiful Thursday. I'm still working out this whole new live thing. And there we go. I know how to shut it off now. All right, guys, have a great Thursday. I'll see you next week, if not sooner.